On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Dana Hill's death in 1996 marked a poignant end to a life and career that had been both inspiring and tragically constrained by illness. Hill, known for her role as Audrey Griswold in National Lampoon's European Vacation and acclaimed voice work in animated series like DuckTales and Goof Troop, passed away at just 32 years old. Her death was attributed to a stroke brought on by complications from type 1 diabetes, a disease she had battled since childhood. The circumstances of her passing reflect not only personal resilience, but also the broader societal challenges surrounding chronic illness during the late 20th century. In an era before widespread public understanding and advocacy for diabetes, Hill's story exemplifies how health battles were often waged privately, especially for women in Hollywood. Despite her condition stunting her physical growth and limiting certain career opportunities, Hill maintained a vibrant presence in the industry, especially through voice acting, a field where her talent could shine unencumbered by physical constraints. The immediate aftermath of her death did not create the widespread media waves that often follow celebrity passings, perhaps because Hill had stepped out of the spotlight in the years leading up to her death due to declining health. However, her legacy lived on through the voices of characters that continued to resonate with children and families long after her passing. Her work remains a testament to how artists can leave a lasting cultural imprint, even when their careers are abbreviated. Dana Hill's story is emblematic of the quiet strength many performers must summon while navigating both personal and professional struggles. In a media environment often focused on glamour and perfection, her openness about her condition and perseverance challenged Hollywood's standards and broadened representation. Her death reminds us of the fragility of life, particularly for those with chronic illness, and the strength required to live authentically within those bounds. In memory, Hill is immortalized through the enduring popularity of her voice roles and the affection held by fans who grew up hearing her. The industry, too, honors her by continuing to champion diverse voices and talents, especially in animation, where character often transcends appearance. Dana Hill's life and untimely death offer a window into the universal themes of vulnerability, perseverance, and the quiet power of legacy built through art. Gianni Versace's death on July 15, 1997, was a shocking act of violence that abruptly ended the life of one of the most influential fashion designers of the late 20th century. He was murdered on the front steps of his Miami Beach mansion, shot twice in the head by Andrew Cunanan, a spree killer already wanted for several other murders. Versace's assassination sent shockwaves through both the fashion world and the broader public, not only because of his stature, but because of the brazen and seemingly senseless nature of the crime. Versace was more than a designer. He was a cultural force. He revolutionized fashion by blending classical motifs with bold sensuality, crafting a glamorous aesthetic that defined the 1980s and early 1990s. His death underscored the era's underlying tensions, the glamour of celebrity colliding with the rising awareness of mental health issues, the dangers of fame, and the vulnerability of public figures. Cunanan's rampage also drew attention to how marginalized communities, particularly the gay community to which both Cunanan and Versace belonged, were often overlooked by law enforcement until tragedy struck high-profile individuals. The immediate consequences of Versace's murder were deeply felt. The fashion industry mourned the loss of a visionary, and his sister, Donatella Versace, stepped into the role of creative director, a decision that shaped the brand's future and preserved his legacy. In the wider cultural sphere, his death prompted increased discourse on celebrity security, the failures of criminal profiling, and the risks faced by openly LGBTQ+ individuals in public life. His death did not diminish his legacy, it magnified it. The mysteries surrounding Cunanan's motives and the dramatic manhunt that followed added a tragic mythos to Versace's life. This narrative was later explored in documentaries, books, and dramatizations, including the award-winning television series The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story, which recontextualized his life and death through the lens of identity, ambition, and injustice. Versace is immortalized not only through his fashion house, which continues to bear his name and vision, but through the art and conversations he inspired. His death highlights humanity's fascination with power, beauty, and mortality, and how we seek meaning in the abrupt silencing of brilliance. Through design, storytelling, and commemoration, Gianni Versace remains a symbol of both elegance and fragility in an often chaotic world. Martin Landau, the Oscar-winning actor renowned for his versatility and intensity, passed away on July 15, 2017, at the age of 89 due to unexpected complications during a hospital stay in Los Angeles. His death was a natural one, but it marked the quiet end of a long and richly textured career that had traversed the golden age of Hollywood, the experimental wave of 1970s cinema, and the modern resurgence of character actors in the 1990s. Landau's passing didn't come amid scandal or tragedy, but in many ways, that was a reflection of his era and values. Longevity, discipline, and the pursuit of craft over celebrity. Having started as a cartoonist before being accepted into the prestigious Actors Studio, where he studied alongside James Dean and Steve McQueen, Landau became a staple of American television in the 1960s, particularly for his role in Mission Impossible. However, his career faced a decline in the late 1970s and early 80s, which mirrored the broader shift in Hollywood from character-driven storytelling to blockbuster spectacle. His resurgence in the 1990s, capped by his unforgettable portrayal of Bela Lugosi in Tim Burton's Ed Wood, 1994, which earned him an Academy Award, offered a rare second act in an industry often dismissive of aging actors. Landau's ability to reinvent himself revealed the growing appreciation for legacy performers and the value of experience, reflecting a cultural shift toward rediscovering past icons in a contemporary light. The immediate consequences of his death were felt most deeply in the acting community. Colleagues and students remembered him not just as a performer, but as a mentor who gave generously of his time at the Actors Studio, shaping a new generation of actors. While his death did not shift the course of history, it did highlight how careers built on resilience and authenticity can leave lasting legacies. Martin Landau is immortalized not only through his films, but through the roles he chose, complex, often haunted characters that mirrored the emotional undercurrents of their times. His death reminds us that not all legacies are forged in flames or tragedy. Some are carved quietly through decades of dedication. We remember him in scenes that linger, in the textured performances that taught us about vulnerability, and in the continued reverence for craft over fame. In that, his memory lives on as a quiet triumph of artistry and perseverance. Andrea Gibson, the celebrated spoken word poet and LGBTQ+ activist, passed away today at the age of 49, following a battle with ovarian cancer. Their death, though natural, was underscored by the urgency and vulnerability that had long defined their work. Gibson was open about their illness, using poetry not as a retreat from mortality, but as a way to confront it head-on, transforming personal suffering into a universal meditation on love, grief, and resistance. Living and dying as a non-binary figure in a world still grappling with rigid gender norms, Gibson's passing was emblematic of the broader cultural struggles of their era, an era marked by increasing visibility for queer identities and simultaneous backlash. Their death didn't merely mark the end of a poetic voice. It symbolized the silencing of a truth-teller in a time when language had become a battleground for identity, belonging, and justice. The immediate consequence of Gibson's death was a wave of collective mourning across queer and literary communities. Fans, fellow poets, and activists shared Gibson's words online, rereading pieces like The Nutritionist and Angels of the Get-Through as both comfort and call to action. Their poetry, which often explored themes of mental illness, gender identity, and love, became memorial altars, lines etched into the hearts of those who felt seen in their work. In this way, their death amplified their legacy, reaffirming the radical power of vulnerability. Though Gibson did not shift the trajectory of history in a traditional geopolitical sense, they influenced a generation of poets and readers who found freedom in their fearless articulation of truth. Their work championed empathy over dogma, emotion over apathy, values desperately needed in polarized times. Andrea Gibson's death reminds us how mortality can become a canvas for meaning rather than just loss. They faced death not with resignation, but with defiant tenderness, inviting the world to grieve loudly, love deeply, and live authentically. As with poets before them, from Sylvia Plath to Mary Oliver, Gibson is immortalized through their words, which outlive the body and continue to move hearts. Their memory is honored through readings, shared quotes, tattooed verses, and the growing number of young writers they inspired to speak boldly, even when trembling. In doing so, they join the quiet, enduring lineage of artists who turned pain into poetry and grief into grace. Celeste Holm, the Oscar-winning actress celebrated for her charm, wit, and commanding presence on both stage and screen, passed away on July 15, 2012, at the age of 95 from a heart attack. Her death, while natural and occurring at an advanced age, marked the fading of a golden era in Hollywood, one where elegance, stagecraft, and moral character were central to both public image and artistic expression. Holm rose to prominence in the 1940s, a time when American cinema was both a cultural force and a tool for shaping national values during and after World War II. She won an Academy Award for her role in Gentleman's Agreement, a film tackling anti-Semitism at a time when such issues were rarely addressed so openly in mainstream media. Her choice to participate in films with moral substance reflected a broader mid-century push in the arts to wrestle with justice, tolerance, and human dignity in the wake of global conflict. By the time of her death, Holm had been largely removed from the spotlight, her final years marked by legal disputes over her estate and health decisions, a tragic but familiar arc for aging stars whose golden years are overshadowed by family tension and financial complexity. These circumstances echoed the very themes of dignity and legacy that so often colored her work, raising difficult questions about how society cares for its cultural elders. The immediate aftermath of her death prompted tributes from Broadway and Hollywood alike, celebrating her contributions not only as an actress, but as an advocate for the arts. Her passing served as a reminder of a period when actors were not only entertainers, but public moral figures, often involved in social causes and remembered for their poise under pressure. Celeste Holm's death did not radically shift the cultural landscape, but it underscored the dwindling presence of a generation that embodied classic American theater and cinema. Her legacy continues through performances that emphasized both intellect and empathy, an enduring contrast to today's often ephemeral fame culture. We immortalize Holm through film retrospectives, archival interviews, and her enduring roles in socially conscious cinema. In remembering her, we also reflect on how the arts serve not just to entertain, but to question, to challenge, and to inspire. Her life and her death gently remind us that memory and meaning are the true afterlives of public figures, shaped as much by the lives they touched as by the roles they played. Googie Withers, a distinguished British-Australian actress renowned for her work in film, television, and stage, passed away peacefully of natural causes on July 15, 2011, at the age of 94. Her death, though not sudden or dramatic, marked the quiet end of an era steeped in theatrical sophistication and cinematic grace. As one of the last surviving stars of Britain's golden age of cinema, Withers embodied the resilience and refinement that defined mid-20th century entertainment. Born in India to a British father and Dutch mother, Withers became a symbol of internationalism and artistic versatility. She rose to fame in the 1940s through films such as One of Our Aircraft is Missing and Dead of Night, roles that mirrored wartime Britain's emphasis on moral courage, unity, and psychological depth. Her work during and after World War II reflected a cultural shift. Audiences craved narratives that offered both escape and confrontation with the social upheavals of the time. Her later career in Australia, including her acclaimed role in the TV series Prisoner, demonstrated her ability to adapt to new mediums and changing cultural landscapes. At a time when many actresses were discarded with age, Withers remained active, earning respect not only for her talent, but for her graceful endurance in a male-dominated industry. Withers' passing did not incite political shockwaves or mass mourning, but prompted a thoughtful wave of tributes from across the arts. Her death symbolized the twilight of a generation that valued disciplined craft over celebrity spectacle. Her work, especially during Britain's post-war recovery, reminds us how art was once both a balm and a battle cry, tools to restore morale and question societal norms. The legacy of Googie Withers is preserved not through tragedy, but through timeless performance. Her roles in films like It Always Rains on Sunday, 1947, offer a poignant glimpse into the working-class female psyche, a narrative that was often neglected. Through these portrayals, she gave voice to the quiet struggles of everyday people, proof that significance is not always loud or violent. Withers' death, serene and dignified, invites us to consider how we measure impact. In a world obsessed with sensational exits, hers reminds us that a life of steady contribution and enduring quality is equally deserving of reverence. She is remembered in film archives, retrospectives, and the hearts of viewers who still find truth in her subtle, powerful portrayals. Margaret Lockwood, one of Britain's most beloved actresses during the 1930s and 1940s, died of natural causes on July 15, 1990, at the age of 73. Though her passing lacked the dramatic flair of the roles she portrayed on screen, it marked the fading of a cinematic era defined by wartime resilience, elegance, and the golden age of British cinema. Her death, while not a national shock, was deeply felt by fans and film historians who saw her as a symbol of a bygone age when screen acting was grounded in theatrical discipline and classic storytelling. Lockwood's fame was rooted in her iconic performances in films like The Lady Vanishes, 1938, and The Wicked Lady, 1945, roles that made her a household name across Britain. These films, produced during periods of global tension and uncertainty, reflected the duality of the era's values: grace under pressure and fascination with moral ambiguity. Lockwood's portrayal of strong, independent, and sometimes dangerous women challenged the traditional expectations of femininity in post-Victorian society. Her characters often walked the line between virtue and vice, capturing the complexity of a society recovering from war and redefining gender roles. Her death in 1990 came at a time when British cinema had long moved into new territory: gritty realism, post-colonial narratives, and modern sensibilities. Yet her passing reminded audiences of the cultural power of classic storytelling and the role of film in shaping national identity during wartime. Though she had largely stepped away from public life in her later years, her legacy endured in black and white reels, retrospectives, and affectionate memories of a more romantic cinematic age. The impact of Lockwood's death did not alter the course of political history, but it did trigger renewed appreciation for the golden era she helped define. Critics and historians revisited her work, re-evaluating her influence on British film and the shaping of complex female protagonists in popular media. Her legacy is preserved through curated film festivals, scholarly essays, and affectionate tributes in British film institutes. Like many stars of early cinema, Lockwood lives on in celluloid, a medium that grants a kind of immortality to those who once held audiences captive with nothing more than a look, a line, or a lingering silhouette in monochrome. In death, as in life, Margaret Lockwood reminds us that cultural power is not always loud or revolutionary. It can also be graceful, steady, and unforgettable. Anton Chekhov, the master of the short story and one of Russia's greatest playwrights, died of tuberculosis on July 15, 1904, in the German spa town of Badenweiler. His death, though expected due to his long battle with the disease, was poignant and symbolic, reflecting the fragility of life, an ever-present theme in his own work. Chekhov's passing not only marked the end of a literary era, but also cast a reflective shadow over the turn-of-the-century Russian intelligentsia, caught between the fading grandeur of the Tsarist era and the storm brewing toward revolution. Chekhov had been plagued by tuberculosis for much of his adult life, yet he continued to write with astonishing clarity, empathy, and restraint. His death was marked by eerie calm and theatricality. When told by his doctor that nothing more could be done, he reportedly sipped a glass of champagne and lay down to sleep, never to wake again. The quiet dignity of his final moments mirrored the human subtlety he brought to his characters, ordinary people caught in extraordinary emotional landscapes. The consequences of Chekhov's death were not immediate political upheaval, but rather a profound cultural loss. He died just as Russia teetered on the edge of revolution, and his works, full of psychological nuance and social critique, would later be interpreted through the lens of a society in turmoil. His death closed a chapter on literary realism steeped in human frailty and moral ambiguity. Writers such as James Joyce, Catherine Mansfield, and Raymond Carver would carry his stylistic legacy forward, borrowing his minimalism and emotional depth. Chekhov's legend only grew after his passing. He came to symbolize the soul of a Russia poised between decadence and disintegration. His plays, The Cherry Orchard, The Seagull, Uncle Vanya, became mainstays of world theater, constantly reinterpreted to reflect the anxieties of different eras. In literature, he became synonymous with compassionate observation, moral complexity, and a commitment to truth over melodrama. His legacy endures not in grand monuments or state honors, but in the way his stories continue to whisper truths about human nature. Through theater, film adaptations, literary analysis, and academic study, Chekhov is immortalized as a chronicler of quiet despair and enduring hope. His death reminds us that mortality need not silence a voice, especially when that voice has already taught generations how to listen.